Do we want to get going?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, quick introduction.
As you can see, I got a kind of a little put together easel right here. I pick it up and show you, but I'm afraid it's going to fall apart if I do that. So basically, I don't believe in PowerPoint presentations as much as, classic slideshows. So that's what we're doing right here. Let me know if you can't see anything clearly. I can kind of push it up, push it away, but this is as much as you're going to see in my face. So sorry about that. Anyways, let's talk. So this product in particular, it's actually kind of hard to explain because this product fits a need in a industry that's a little esoteric, and that is the litigation consulting industry. And the best way I can describe this industry is with a practical example. So, let's say, something that happens all the time is these huge companies are suing each other for one reason or another. They'll figure it out to sue each other. Let's take Target and Walmart, just by sheer example. It can be anyone. It can be Verizon, AT&T, Google, Apple, whatever. Two big companies are suing each other. Target is suing Walmart. Why? Because, I don't know, let's say Target wants more toilet paper and Walmart's hogging it all, right? And there's some problems with this. When it comes to this type of industry, the litigation consulting, what happens is when these two people sue each other for this type of matter, you have people in the middle of all of it who have to figure out the data, have to figure out like all the answers these lawyers want. So if Walmart is suing Target, questions they may have is like, how much toilet paper do you have? Where do you get your toilet paper? Who do you pay for your toilet paper? How much is payroll regarding toilet paper? What type of toilet paper? What's the chemical compound of toilet paper? They want to figure out all these questions, and obviously the lawyers alone don't do it, so they hire these litigation consultants. I've worked in this industry a little bit before as a CTO, as well as we do some consulting with this type of industry. But one thing I noticed is the issue with this amount of information going everywhere is there's really no set way of how to do this. As you can see from this graph right here, you got these arrows flying everywhere. You got, in this case, we have 3 different consultants and we have a lawyer on, this side over here. He's going to get this amount of information, toilet paper sales, payroll statements and, financial statements, PDFs, documents. He's going to get it a whole bunch of different ways. And each way only has a few things in common. A few of them just have a few things that they have to require. One, wherever they're storing this information has to be for long term. That's because some of these litigations can last for years, some even decades. 2, it has to be very secure because, as I mentioned, there's payroll statements going by. So you need to encrypt the right stuff, and you need to put the stuff in the right blocks and stuff like that. And 3, it has to be easy. You have a ton of people throwing you information. So however they can get you information, it has to be easy for them. They're not there to learn of whatever system you're using. So where does that leave us? Well, that leaves us with my product idea. Hopefully you all understand this type of industry where we're at right now. It's basically a lot of legal documentation flying back and forth. And that is Dossibay. Dossibay is a file sharing platform or hosting platform, however you want to call it, that follows those 3 rules. It holds them for a long time. It's very, very secure, and it's very, very easy. And there's several ways it achieves this. So let's go on. Why would you want to use Dossibay compared to like any other classical service? Like, as we saw from this graph over here, I mentioned there's a whole bunch of different ways someone can get something. Well, these are the different ways. I think Dropbox, Google Drive. One thing I don't have on here is email. Sometimes they just email them a huge file. It's gigabytes in size and it's encrypted, and they call the lawyers like, to decrypt it you have to have this password, so it's still secure. So we made a platform that's essentially Google Drive, except geared towards that ability to share this exact type of information for this exact type of case. So what these people can do is essentially they can open up Dossibay, the app, and without an account, they can upload files to their lawyer, and their lawyer is the only person that needs an account. Their lawyer, optionally, they can, if they want to, force everyone to sign in with the username and password, but to make the easy part easy. They don't need an account. All they need to know is a lawyer calls them saying, hey, enter this password and upload these files. Files are automatically encrypted, which checks off the security block. And then these files can stay on that server for as long as a lawyer likes. And we'll get to that a little bit more in the business model. But as you can see, we have a few advantages, and that is one, client-side encryption and password-only access. I kind of covered the password-only access, but the client-side encryption is a big one. Essentially, before these files hit our server, before these files even leave your computer, they're encrypted. And actually, not many hosting services, you know, the ones listed on, oh, it's on my right. Pretty sure it's on your guys' right too. They haven't figured that out yet. It is very hard to implement. In fact, this entire project started out as a research project to try to implement client-side encryption. It's stupid secure. And the licensing model, I'll cover that a little bit more, but basically it tries to make sure that these files can stay on there for a long time without, you know, the law firm or the customer worrying about, you know, am I going to pay my monthly bills, or like, you know, how long is this service supposed to fit me? And finally, it's built for, you know, long-term, like I said. Once again, we'll get a little bit into the business model side of things. So if you can read, it's got business model. We got 3 main points. Is one, it's unlimited sharing and limited users. We do not charge by the user. We do not charge by how much sharing you do. The only thing we charge by is how much information you need, you know, 1 gigabyte to 1 terabyte to 1 petabyte for whatever reason. And the reason for this is because these litigations, when they're happening, these files are being transferred through thousands of people. And trying to do this through, I believe Dropbox charges per user, trying to get a user per each one of those, you know, users, it's incredibly expensive. And so this is geared towards a situation where you're having a lot of people involved, a lot of files flying back and forth. And the only thing you really need to worry about is how much data you need. And then we have the manual allocation of resources. So this is part of the business model where basically the lawyer who buys this product, the lawyer who is a customer of Dossibay, they have a lot of control of how it works. Compared to Google Drive, you don't have much control. You basically say, I want 2 terabytes, and that's it. You can share via link and stuff like that. But other than that, people can go in there and they start uploading terabytes and terabytes and terabytes into your Google Drive, and you're out of space for your other customers. With this one, you can give somebody a link and you can say, limit them to this amount of information. You know, so that way you still have, you know, free space left for your other larger customers who are coming in and throwing terabytes at a time. You can allocate that. And that it's part of the business model that the customer has more modification over the service than they would over Google Drive. And then the integrated solution. And this one, I'm not going to cover too much, but essentially what we found with these law firms is when they talk about file sharing, there's at some points, they just don't trust cloud, like, you know, storing stuff in the cloud at all. They don't store anything in the cloud. They don't have Google Drive. They don't have anything. They have their servers. So we actually built this product to be sold as 2 things. One, you know, as a service, you know, like a website you go to use it. And 2, actual hardware. We haven't made, I don't know how successful it's going to be. It's just, you know, the people I've been talking to and, you know, my studies of inside this industry is there is a need for hardware that is just basically they can host their own Dossibay website without the need of the internet. But yeah, that's a lot complicated than it sounds, but I'm only going to touch that briefly. So continuing on, I said licensing model. I didn't say this is going to be a software as a service. I'm going to emphasize the word license. And as you can see right here, this right here, if you go to dossibay.com right now, you'll see this. This is Dossibay, and you can enter in a password, and you can unlock files, and you can view the files. And if you scroll down a little bit, you can create your own dossier and put your own files in there and give it a password so other people can view it. But when you buy a license, it's going to look like this. You know, let's say my firm is called My Firm. You get to put your own logos on there. You get to put your own colors, and it has a more professional setting, which, as you know, with these lawyers, that's all they want. They want a very customized experience. Compared to if you go to like Google Drive or Dropbox, what you'll see is Google Drive and Dropbox. You won't see My Firm. You know, you won't see my advertisements of who I am. It's less professional. And a lot of these litigation consultants, they actually seek to have their own custom file sharing solutions. Unfortunately, they hire a crappy IT department to make it. It leads to a whole bunch of security problems. But the reason they do that in the first place is because they want to have more of a professional setting, and using Google Drive, you know, end user product that everyone uses, it's not as professional as having your own system. So the licensing model allows it to have their own, you know, branding on it. So, and it's also a privilege of having a product that is used for a very specific amount of esoteric customers, is because we can really nail down exactly what they want without having to try to advertise our own product too hard. So we sell to them, and they don't necessarily, you know, they don't want the cool, hot stuff. They just want something that really works and something that represents them. So we got to use that advantage. So we have now the expenses of running this type of service. And as you go and you look at Dossibay.com, we actually have it up right now. And the current operating costs are not really high. Thank you, Hostarian. We have basically 2 servers operating 50% right now. It scales as, you know, people get on there in higher demand. And each one of the servers is $300 a month. That's our only really rolling cost, except for development. Development's its own beast, and, you know, we got to do what we can, but development's easy for me, so not a problem. Another cost is the actual hardware itself. Notice how we're not using Amazon or we're not using DigitalOcean. We're actually using the hardware. It kind of goes back to the idea that the integrated solution we have to provide, some of our customers would want to buy servers that they can put into their own data centers. So we actually just put the hardware together, put the software on it, and then we optimize the software to work with that specific hardware. So it's actually cheaper in the long run, because Amazon charges a lot of money when you're talking about storage of this size. You know, right now we're operating with like 24 terabytes, and it's a one-time payment of $2,000, and that's it. We have 24 terabytes. I do plan down the road, when we go into more productive settings and we have a little more capital and more customers, we can probably pay $3,000 for more like 100 terabytes. So it gets more efficient as we get more customers going on. But as far as the income, we actually charge the gigabyte per year. Notice it's not per month, and that's also to go with the longevity. Because some of these cases, they last, again, for years, and some even decades. So we try to mold the business model. So, you know, when you purchase a license, it's like you're going to be dug into this for good. And it encourages more uses of our services. And this is just kind of the timeline. I only want to focus on those bolder ones right here. We actually started this as a research project back in November to prove that client-side encryption was possible over the internet. It's kind of, I hate using buzzwords, but bleeding edge technology, this kind of stuff. Just because, like, no file sharing service has really done client-side encryption. And for those who don't know, client-side encryption basically means, like, me as the owner of this service, if I wanted to access your information, I couldn't. It's impossible, because it's encrypted before it leaves your computer. We don't even store the password anywhere on the servers. It's never even sent over the internet. And you may think, like, how is that even possible? Well, that's why it's so bleeding edge. It's a very hard thing to do. In the middle there, you know, that middle bolded one is, by the end of this month, we want to finish version 0.1. Right now, if you go on there, it's basically a beta. You can get on it, you can add files, download files, it's all encrypted, and it's basically a proof of concept. But by the end of this month, we want to be able to have the ability to buy licenses and have your own license website, as well as a few other features that have been in the higher demand. And hopefully by this end of the year, I plan to basically get all the major features that everyone can need. And I also want to sell enough licenses so we are at like maybe 20 times, we're making 20 times the operating costs, because operating costs are stupid low. So my goal ultimately is probably to make $70,000 a year on this reoccurring with the licensing. It's not reoccurring per month, because again, we don't charge per month. But that's the whole gist of the product. Once again, my name is Kevin Marshke, and my slide is fallen. There we go. I'm actually part of Element Incorporated. We are a team of 4 people right now. That's the head count right there. Not a big team, but that's all I got to say. So, any questions?
Hi, Kevin. That was
Hi.
really pretty interesting. Okay, is Mark going to talk first? That's fine.
Oh. Haven't.
Hi. My question is, my accountant has software where he can upload files and we can share and we can make notes. And how does your system, and I guess your major difference is that you encrypt stuff before it even gets onto the server? Is that the secret sauce part of you?
Oh yeah, that is definitely the secret sauce. Like I said, I did a ton of research and no file sharing service has quite figured out how to do that. It is something very difficult. So we can guarantee a layer of safety that no one else can. And when I say layer of safety, I mean like if Dossibay, heaven forbid, if we are ever hacked, like completely taken over by hackers, we would lose nothing because 100% of the information is encrypted.
Okay. So that's really key right there. And do you have like patent pending or something for your process of doing that?
We don't have a patent pending. However, we are going to rely more on the trade secret side of things because if we do patent it, we release how we do it. And it is very, very complicated. It's a ton of algorithms, a ton of math. And if we do patent it, we looked into this. If we do patent it, somebody else is going to take all that information, change a few tiny things, and then it won't infringe the patent. That's the unfortunate reality of software patents. So we're just going to keep it. How we do it is a secret.
Okay, that's cool. There's folders, right? So a law firm buys your product or licenses your product, and each different client can have his own place where all his documents are filed, right?
Yeah, so that's actually one thing I didn't cover on. I kind of cut it out the last second because I didn't consider it too interesting. But we actually structured this product so when you're using it, it forces you to use basically a breadth first approach, which means like as soon as you need the use of sharing files, you first need to ask yourself, okay, which client is this for? And then you're going to make a basically section that is separated off for that client. So your clients aren't going to be mixing, they're not going to be sharing the same information or folders or whatever. Everything's going to be partitioned off to its own department.
Thanks for the presentation there. I have some questions and clarifications around the encryption bit, since that seems to be a key portion of the product. So how would this differ from some of the open source tools like Cryptomator that are client-side encryption tools for file sharing?
So we also looked into the open source of seeing who did figure this out. And what we found is there was some libraries, however, how they worked on the lower level, and this is definitely more technical in nature, is it uses basically what we call soft JavaScript functions for encryption, which means they're one, not as fast as they could be, and two, they couldn't take the full advantage of hardware accelerated encryption, which is stupid fast. And none of them were written in a way where it did do that. And how you do that is, with this new technology called, WebAssembly, and that's what we made the basis of this encryption library in is WebAssembly, which I didn't find another library that did that. So that's why we couldn't use an open source one, because it wasn't as nearly as fast, because keep in mind, a lot of these files are gigabytes and terabytes in size, and it has to run with those. When we try to do that with the open source libraries, the whole browser crashed. Sometimes a computer would crash.
Cool.
I'll take the next question. How are you intending to sell this? I mean, how are you trying to break into law firms? Which sounds bad, doesn't it?
Yeah, sounds like we'll get in quick trouble for this. So we basically we have two instincts. One is um, me and my co-founder. That's Brett right there. He's actually sick at home with coronavirus or
no.
malaria. We're not sure which one. He's an unlucky fellow. But basically, we actually were leading the IT department at a law firm before we started this company. So we have good exercise with that. And two, we actually work with a lot of law firms now as a consulting gig. So we basically have an in with this type of industry. We have looked at, we have asked around, it's like, if we made a product like this, would you buy it? And they're like, I would, they're like, I'd get it instantly because there's a huge demand for this. So we hopefully our biggest attribute is one, word of mouth, and two, a lot of these law firms, they do work together. So if one law firm starts using the service and they see the service, the Dossibay, they're going to think, well, I'm going to probably get this too. It's going to spread generically because these law firms always work together. So if one starts using it, they all start to see that, it's becoming the new market trend.
I have a quick question. First disclaimer, Kevin is my neighbor at T-Rex, so I know those guys. I know how hard they work, and they're very bright. One question I would have is that a lot of times for legal reasons, especially for government reasons, there needs to be some sort of standard. So what I'm referring to is NIST, okay? And so in order for a government agency especially to use something, it has to have a standardized algorithm that they are familiar with, like one of the RSA algorithms or SHA 256 or 512 or something like that. I know you've done your own because it is more secure because no one knows about it. But I'm just saying, in order for probably also a law firm, there has to be some sort of standard that everyone is familiar with. Otherwise, they risk getting sued, right? Because if they get sued in court and saying, well, what algorithm did you use? Well, I used, this Dossibay algorithm. It can't be proven in court yet. So I would also offer the option to have one of the standard encryption algorithms plugged in, because that would give you an out in case a firm needs that. And I would ask all your firms to see whether or not that is a requirement. I know for government, it has to be one of the approved algorithms, otherwise they can't do business with a client. So just keep that in mind going forward.
To clarify, when I said like custom implementation of an algorithm, we did actually use, more specifically, we use RSA 256, and we use SHA 256. However, how they're implemented into the browser and into these files, that's the mystery. That's the mystery sauce. We did actually look into like pretty much, when these trials are going on and these information is being sent back and forth. The court does order a lot of compliance to be met. And yeah, what you showed was actually one of those examples. Was it the NIST you just showed me?
Yep, NIST.
Okay. So the NIST, some of them do PCI, some of them do HIPAA. And so we looked into all those and we tried to find the algorithm that was one, the best fit for all of them, so that it can work with all of them. And two, the algorithm that could still work. And we compiled, this huge block of engineering that used all these proper algorithms, which is SHA 256 and RSA 256. We didn't need to use 512 because apparently 256 is secure enough. But yeah, we definitely looked into that and we checked all those boxes with all those major compliances.
Good.
Could you speak to some of I think I get the general core functionality of the password protection, but could you speak to, I don't know, stuff like forgotten passwords if you're not holding them on site, or bad actors specifically is what I have in mind. And what I mean by that is like a junior staff member, something like that, that has decided to, co-opt the password. If that's an embedded password, can you change that after you've put a file, or what does the administration look like, and how do you kind of protect those files from people problems? Because that's, you know, really the number one security hole in almost anything, right?
Yeah, no, you're completely right. So to touch on your first thing, forgotten password. So we did think of that. Right now, it's not implemented. We are doing a lot of research into like if this is okay with the compliance side of things, but we plan to actually store the passwords of each individual dossier, because each you know, when you buy a license, you can have a limited amount of dossiers. That's basically a folder, and you can share that folder with the people who only need to see it. You know, it's departmentalized. And each one of those folders is a different password, and it's encrypted differently. All those passwords, we're thinking about doing this, but essentially what we're going to do is take those passwords, we're going to store them on the database, except the passwords themselves are going to be encrypted with a password that is never. So it's basically we have one master password to view them all. And another thing we have is departmentalized passwords. And this is another research project that was much earlier than this. We have a huge portfolio in cybersecurity. But essentially, you can have one password, and that can access these 4 dossiers. You can have another password that access over here these 4 folders. You know, we call them dossiers. Folders, dossiers are interchangeable. So that way, everything's on a need-to-know basis, and there is going to be a master password that someone is going to have to know, and that's going to be an officer-level thing. That's not going to be like someone, you know, a new IT member or something like that. If a new IT member needs to look at files, he's going to be given a password that can only access the files he needs to view. And if he tries to take that same password and start decrypting files over here, it won't work.
Good.
Cool.
So
That makes sense.
yeah. Any other questions?
Kevin, are you paired with a couple law firms? You said you had talked to clients, but I mean, how many law firms have you run this past? And do you have any like in-house trials or something going on?
We don't. So we have one right now. By the end of the month, like I said, we're going to complete the MVP, and by that time, we have one client that we're definitely partnered with. We're under a partnership agreement. That's QSI Consulting, by the way. They do a whole bunch of stuff with telecom. We're going to start in-house trial with them, and then we have a consulting firm who's in the health industry that we have had in the past, and then we have another consulting industry that's also in the health industry that we also previously worked with. We've talked with them, so a total of 3 law firms we've ran this by, and I have interviewed people from Evans and Dixon's, as well as I forgot the other law firm that's around here in T-Rex.
Bolsonelli, probably.
Yes, Pasanelli. And I basically set up with some of their lawyers. I asked them about this product, and you know, just kind of pick their brain. So I have a control group. Unfortunately, this product is so esoteric, it's hard to get like dozens of people, you know, helping me support. So I'm only at max, like, you know, just like 4 or 5 firms who've said like they would use this. But it's only 4 or 5 firms I've been able to find, you know.
You should talk to Javad from KW. I mean, the nice thing about Javad, he's not in our building, but the firm is in our building. He gives you a very honest opinion. He does not hold back. And so I think he'd be nice to talk to. I can introduce you to him.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Yeah. He's hilarious too.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah,
honest.
Good guy.
Do you want introductions to law firms? Because I know quite a few, and especially quite a few that deal with long-term litigation involving billions of dollars. You know, that this guy testifies before the Supreme, states.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. Honestly, that's the biggest thing I'm in the need right now. You know, right now the development's going really smooth. We're affording all of it. It's all bootstrapped, so we're not in need for cash. We just need for customers and input. That's the biggest. Yeah, that is the biggest thing I need is introduction to that. So absolutely.
Okay. Well, make sure, I don't think I have your email. I'll make sure BJ, do you mind BJ, are you still on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, you dirty dog. Took off. Could you make sure Kevin gets his email to all of us, really. none of us have it.
Hey, Kevin, what's your email?
Yeah,
Well,
so it's actually
If you
right
don't
around
want to
here.
put it on, since we're recording and putting on YouTube, so you might not want
Yeah,
to.
it's K Marshke at lm.ai. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yeah.
All right, I just put it in the chat there.
There you go. Beautiful. Perfect.
So yeah, if you can get those introductions to me, I would absolutely take advantage of that. That is obviously what I need the most right now in this early stage of implementing features and deciding what features are at higher demand than other ones and stuff like that.
Have
Yeah,
you
I would
just
defer to Joe. Joe is way more connected legally than I am. I just mentioned Javad because he gives, like I said, he gives you an honest opinion.
Honesty
also
is the
pretty
best policy.
supportive of the new ventures too, as long as
Yep.
he believes in it. So,
Yep.
are the for the local server solutions, are those sitting in RAID? The drives for redundancy, or what's the plan with
So
that?
right now we are actually the redundancy we have right now is a server redundancy. So for every server, there's another server doing the exact same thing.
Okay.
We haven't exactly figured out what is the best optimized, the best way to go about redundancy when it comes to integrated solutions.
Yeah.
For our data center, multiple servers, that's the way to go for
Yeah.
us. So that way, if one just goes down for any reason, if the whole server goes down, we're still good. But for the integrated solution, there's still a lot to figure out as far as what the client wants. I mean, we can do whatever we need to. We looked at all sorts of RAID, RAID 10s and whatnot, but yeah, we're not quite sure what the proper way to go about that is.
RAID 5 for people that are cheap and RAID 10 for people that aren't.
Kevin,
Statistically, you're secure.
what's your price point now?
So the price point is we're looking around $20 a gigabyte per year for small users, which is extremely affordable in the context of litigation consulting, because sometimes they're just throwing around a bunch of PDFs, which caps out no more than 5 or 10 gigabytes. However, we have to have a lot of small customers to fill it out. The larger customers would be looking for somewhere between 1 to 5 terabytes. And we couldn't do $20 a gigabyte a year for that, because that's going to round out to be like a $200,000 a year. So we're probably going to be looking more at probably $3 a gigabyte per year for a couple terabytes. And ultimately, all these numbers, our goal is to probably, for one server, we want it to pull in about $70,000 of revenue per server. That's just kind of what we worked out. We haven't really had any concrete price points yet until we get into on-site trials and stuff like that, and then we'll start to assess how much it's worth.
Okay. I would think about putting it in terms of how many billable hours per terabyte per year, because that's a number that people can wrap their brains around and think about how cost effective you are.
You know what? That's actually a really good idea. So billable hours, because that is what you normally clients, our customers work with.
That's a
not bad
number
idea.
lawyers use, yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin, do you have redundancy across multiple locations as well? Because that's something to consider. Like you have a server here and a server in California, just in case.
Right now we don't, but we need to, because that was obviously one of the biggest concerns is we're actually working with this client now, and they're using a lot of DigitalOcean and as well as Amazon. They're using both services. And that's because some of these courts, when they say, when you're holding these files, they have to be held in 2 different locations that are so many miles apart. So if they try to put it in just a super huge mega data center like DigitalOcean, it's not enough, because if that gets blown up, the litigation still needs to go on.
Yep.
So they have to put it across multiple locations. So that's one thing we need to do, but we have not done that yet, because we haven't basically gotten to that point where it's critical that it's needed. I plan to do that probably sometime later this year, though.
Mm-hmm.
EXO co-location facilities are really good for that. So there's one on just down the street from T-Rex.
Oh no, I'm using
Locus.
Hosterian right now as co-location, and they've been really good to us. So
But
now we just need to find another.
the counterpoint
provider.
with EXO is they have a distributed network. They have, I suggest the ones down in Arizona, because Arizona is a little bit more stable than California from a seismic profile and other, and just lots of reasons. And, you know, if you're on a single network, you can more gracefully, or a single backbone, you can more gracefully do a DR exercise or a disaster recovery exercise. So, you know, that was, here you just benefited from a company that was, let's see, I did a project with them. It was a $15 million co-location build out, and it was for a very large company, and that was the two best options for a company in St. Louis. So that was 2 years ago. It might be a little bit different, but it's a good starting point, and it's actually pretty affordable.
Okay, yeah, I'll look into that.
Are there other industries you think might benefit from this? I mean, like you said, I mean, medical seems an obvious one, you know, sharing files between doctors and between hospitals and that sort of stuff. But I mean, do you just want to stick with lawyers, or do you want to branch out? I mean, it seems like this could work in many ways.
Oh yeah, so the original plan, the plan is we're going to go into the litigation consulting field, and then we're going to start branching into financials and medical, just anything with precious documents being sent back and forth. You know, Mary said at the very beginning of these questions, like, you know, her financial institute was sharing files with her. And that's also another thing, is tax firms have a ton of files being sent back and forth that are super sensitive. So we do plan to eventually blend into that.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see this application for just about every industry that deals with anything that's even somewhat personally related.
Yeah.
Other questions? No?
No,
All
pretty good.
right. Well, thank you very much, Kevin. Great presentation. Great idea for a company. Yeah. Round of applause all around. And thank you everybody for attending our Zoom meeting. This is Zoom, so I'm including that is hackers somewhere. And hopefully we'll see everybody next week. And Kevin, if people would like to get in touch with Kevin, BJ put his email up on the chat. So hopefully we can all help you out in the future. So thank you very much.
Hey,
Absolutely.
Joseph.
Tell me what you got.
Yes.
Hey, real quick, before you guys jump, just for a quick second, let me introduce myself, because I'm the oddball that just jumped into your meeting. My name is Mark Kausert, and the reason I jumped in and am participating is because I'm the Associate Director of Policy and Partnerships for the Missouri After School Network. And we support after-school programs all around the state. And we were given we were awarded a grant for entrepreneurship education through the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation to introduce entrepreneurship education in the after-school space around the state. So what I'm doing is learning about the entrepreneurship ecosystem and what is available as we try to raise up the next generation of entrepreneurs. I'm learning about what 1 million cups is. I get lingo tossed at me all the time because I haven't, I'm not a part of the, I've had my toe a little bit sometimes in the entrepreneur and small business world. But in terms of trying to inspire students from kindergarten on up, to give them opportunities to look at what their future can look like, and including entrepreneurship. That's why I'm here today, just listening. It seems to me like, from what I can gather, this is just a space for people to share their ideas and get feedback, which seems incredibly important in this process. And so I just wanted to let you know who I am and why I'm in this meeting, and as I continue to try to learn more about the entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial ecosystem in the state of Missouri.
Yeah, well, welcome. Are you based in St. Louis? Because eventually we do this in person for the most part.
Yeah. No, I'm based at Mizzou, so we're actually on campus. We're a part of Extension, part of MU Extension, but we're based at the university. But obviously we have programs all over the state, and so office housed there. I actually live in Southwest Missouri, and so. But I also am in Columbia too during the week when we're not under pandemic guidelines. Yeah, and that's the other thing. I'm also working with Steve Hennis, who is a MU Extension professor, as well as works for 4-H, and he's an rural development entrepreneurship kind of expert for 4-H, and looking at how we can push this out into those arenas. So he's actually one of working with me in this project, and we're doing pitch contests. We're introducing these programs to, I actually directed an after-school program before coming onto the network, and our focus was college and career readiness. We've since also the network got a grant for that as well, to extend that into after school space. And we've changed that because we put together a statewide task force that includes so many state partners, from the Chamber of Commerce to the Missouri PTA to RPDCs, Missouri Higher Education Workforce Development. And we've changed that to career awareness and post-secondary access, because we know not every kid's going to go to a 4-year college, and they need to find what their niche is, and we need to help inspire them in that direction. So we're kind of working together in that. What I did was I would bring in entrepreneurs and small business owners into my program, and specifically those who had graduated from the school in the community that I was leading that program, to let kids, specifically kids who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. A lot of our programs we work with are grantee programs. So they're in the inner cities as well as rural areas that are what we would consider higher poverty, working poor. And those kids really need to have that chance to see what their future can look like. And so that's part of why we're doing what we're doing in that regard.
Very cool. All right. Well, welcome.
Just wanted to let you guys know that. And I hope to make a meeting in person when this is all said and done.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time. All right. Well, thank you very much. BJ, do we know who is present? Oh, Hive might be the presenter next week. Stay tuned. So, good to see everybody. Hope to see everybody next week. Stay safe and stay away from everybody.
Please.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks.